Hi guys and welcome to today's tutorial. In today's lesson we're going to look at the chapter on urbanisation and we're going to look at a case study which is Dublin, and we're going to look at some problems that can happen to urban areas, to cities such as Dublin. Okay, so we're going to look at a few different problems that can arise in urban areas, and the first problem we're going to look at is urban sprawl. So, urban sprawl is is when the urban area starts to spread out into the countryside, and the countryside land is taken over and built on because the urban area has grown out. Some of the problems that can happen here is that valuable agricultural land is built upon, and then that land cannot be used for agriculture anymore, and a lot of unplanned development of new towns have resulted in a lack of services and amenities for the people that actually inhabit these areas and live in these areas now. So that's the first problem that can happen with urbanisation. The second problem we can have is urban decline. And urban decline usually happens in inner cities. So we'll say this one is on the suburbs, and this one is the inner city. Okay, so in the inner city, because of the poor public housing and the additional volume of traffic, it leads to a lot of traffic congestion. What happens is a lot of young people actually move out of the area into housing estates in the suburbs, and this leads to an overall decline in the urban area, because only old people are left in the area, and this results in a decline in the neighbourhood as it becomes run down. A third problem with urbanisation is inadequate infrastructure. So inadequate infrastructural services. And this happens in both the inner city and in the suburbs. And in the suburbs what happens is leisure areas and leisure activities are not basically prioritised when they're constructing new places for residents to live. And what happens is they built the residential area, but they don't actually include lots of services and amenity and social services activities for these people to do, and it leads to inadequate infrastructural services for the people that actually buy the houses there. In inner city, what happens is young people leave the inner city area, and this leads to a reduction in the amount of services needed. And then what happens is all around the services that are left there start to decline and maybe start to shut down. The fourth point is community disruption. One big problem that you get with an urban problem is that you get a lot of community disruption. And this happens when the government plan to move, say, inner city residents into the suburbs. And what happens is this doesn't work too well, because what happens is you get low income suburb people that have low income moving out into the suburbs, and what happens is it leads to a discrimination and kind of there's like a divide between the upper class and the lower class people, as they're segregated, and it can lead to a breakdown in long-standing neighbourhoods in the inner city when they actually move some residents from the inner city out to the suburbs. The fifth urban problem that you can get is unemployment. Unemployment. So you can get unemployment in both the inner city and in the suburbs. What happens in the inner city is industries have closed down where people once used to work, and people refuse to move out into the suburbs. They still want to live in the city centre, but they don't have the skills or the qualifications necessary to be able to take up a job in the inner city, where now it's being replaced by the CBD, the Central Business District, and it's going to it's going to need lots of business and bank and financial services, but they won't be qualified to work in those jobs, so they won't be able to get a job. So what happens is, if they want to stay in the inner city, they're going to have no job. They're going to be made unemployed. Unemployment is also a problem in the suburbs, because what happens is, in low income suburbs, the unemployment rate is extremely high, because it leads to many like social problems, such as crime. An example of this would be like West Tala, where unemployment in the early 2000s was 2/3 of the people were unemployed. And the last point, the sixth point, and problem with this, where they can find in urban areas such as Dublin, is crime. Crime is a huge problem. It's a huge urban problem, and in all cities, and Dublin is no different. Crime rates are higher in the inner city than in low income suburbs due to the high unemployment rates, the inequalities between the rich and the poor, because of drug related crime, because there's no sense of community, because there's a lot of more apartment based residents, and because of the lack of recreational facilities. And therefore this leads to an additional amount of crime in the inner city compared to the suburbs and the countryside. Okay, so that's it for today's tutorial, and we've looked at urban problems, and we looked at the case study of Dublin, and we looked at 6 different things, and we looked at it for both inner city and in the suburbs. So we looked at urban sprawl, which affected the suburbs, urban decline, which affected inner city, inadequate infrastructural services, which affected inner city and suburbs, community disruption, which affected inner city and the suburbs, unemployment, which affected inner city and the suburbs, and crime, which affected the inner city. Okay, so that's it for the end of this tutorial on urbanisation, where we looked at the case study of Dublin, and we looked at some problems that you can get in urban areas. For your junior certificate examination, you should know at least 2 problems for the higher level course, and I've given you 6 different problems on the last page, and I talked about each one in detail, so you need to know 2 in detail. So you can pick any 2 from the last what we looked at there for the 6 different urban problems, and you need to know 2 in detail. Okay, it's just for your own knowledge. And if you'd like some more videos, please go onto the website examrevision.ie, where you can find lots and lots of videos. I've done the whole geography course. You can find notes, PowerPoints, and quizzes to test yourself. Thank you.